You did it.
Pleasant. Now, we were talking yesterday on the Entertainment Guide about Heston Blumenthal's programme last night. And last night he was going to recreate the last meal on the Titanic.
Yeah, we were discussing whether the menu still existed. I read in the Mail yesterday it didn't, but you reckon that it might.
Yeah. Well, we had a text into the show yesterday evening from a listener who said they were at the City West exhibition and they were sure they saw a menu for the Titanic, the last meal with the date and everything on it for the last day of the Titanic. And I was pretty sure I'd read somewhere that you can actually buy a photocopy of the menu of the last meal of the Titanic. So we wasn't sure whether Heston was talking through his hoop last night. Now, if anybody saw, I didn't see the show last night. If anybody saw it, is that exactly what Heston said? Did he say he wasn't able to find the menu, so he was making it up off the top of his head? Because we had an email overnight into the show from the owners of the Rayanne House, I believe it's near Belfast, who have a Titanic menu, and their head chef and owner, Conor, is on the phone. How about you, Conor?
Hello, Will. Hi. Great, thanks.
Conor, where did you find the Titanic menu from?
I came across a book, or I was given a book as a gift way back sort of maybe mid-90s, and it was a sort of a book I looked at the time, popped on the shelf and sort of just gathered dust. And then we sort of, over the last couple of months, we sort of discovered a little link between the guest house and a painting of the Titanic, and then an artist that did a painting of our guest house. So I sort of brought the book back out again and had a look at it, and with the centenary coming up in a couple of years, we thought it wouldn't be a great idea to try and recreate the original menu that was served to the first class passengers on its last evening.
So from where your guest house is,
it's in Hollywood. It's in Hollywood, just outside Belfast.
So 98 years ago, you would have been able to see the Titanic going past.
Well, that's the whole thing. We thought that the house would lend itself, because whoever lived in the house dates back to 1886. Whoever owned the house, it was a Mr. Smith actually, in 1912. Would have sat in the dining room and watched the Titanic leave. So we thought if you were going to create something, it would be great to create it in a house that had that sort of history to it.
That's fantastic, Conor. And tell me, this book that you have, does it include the menu from first class, second class and third class?
First, second and third. And in fact, there's so much information even out there on the internet that it's a legitimate... it is a legitimate menu that was served that night. Now, Heston last night, he actually, while it was described as a Titanic meal, it was really just a play on Edwardian food. It wasn't actually
what went down
that was served on the Titanic, because he had camel burgers and things like that, and he had the food that Lawrence Arabia would have eaten at the time and stuff. So, but it was served on the Titanic. I suppose it was like a really grand. Back in those days, people measured their wealth by their girth.
Oh, right.
Conor, what you're basically saying is Heston is a spoofer, is what you're basically saying. Right. So without gratuitously plugging your own
show, but it was a great show.
Without gratuitously plugging your own restaurant, what did they eat on the last night in first class?
In first class, well, the original menu was actually 13 courses.
Oh my God!
No wonder it's sorry, that's unfair.
So they were really into their food. I mean, it was a big thing.
I suppose as well, on the like of the Titanic on an evening, that was all you had to do, if you know what I mean.
Right.
The food was such a
Well, hang on a second. Now, I've seen the movie, and down in the basement, they were doing other things on the last night.
They were indeed.
Yeah.
Mind you, they ate pretty well in third class. In fact, the second class menu was as good for that time as any other ship's first class, to be honest.
Wow.
So what kind of things did they eat in first class then?
Well, first class, I've narrowed it to 9 courses, because 13 I think is just a little bit too much now. And they sort of mixed things around. They almost finished just prior to dessert with foie gras and terrines of pâté, and I thought for today's taste that probably wouldn't work. But I've started with the original, which is a recipe for the hors d'oeuvres that night, and they were like oysters. They were called oysters a la Russia, which is a Russian oyster, and it's with chopped tomato and vodka, obviously, Tabasco. That sort of got your taste buds kicking in there. It was a soup course of cream of barley, finished with Bushmills whiskey and cream. Then we have an asparagus and watercress salad with a champagne, saffron vinaigrette, and roasted squab, which is like a little baby pigeon. Again, at that time, it was very popular to eat sort of squab, was actually the term used for young crows, or really any young bird at the time. Wow. Then we had poached salmon with a mousseline sauce with cucumber and dill. Then there was a rosewater sorbet. Again, there's a couple of
rosewater. That was popular then, was it?
Well, it was back then. There's a few flavours that are on this that we sort of have lost over the years. One being rosewater for Victorian Edwardians was a very popular flavour that was used throughout different, forms of cooking. And then we have a fillet steak with foie gras and truffles with a cognac Madeira wine sauce. And then they finished with the sweet. One of the sweet choices that night was spiced peaches and chartreuse jelly with French vanilla ice cream.
Gosh.
Again, chartreuse is a flavour that we sort of have lost, but it's a superb flavour to work with for cooking as well.
Conor, it
And
sounds
then
incredible.
cheese and coffee, so it was quite a lavish meal, you know.
You need the Gaviscon after that.
Conor, you said it well, I have to say. Rayanne House is Conor's guest house where they serve this menu. Is this on a nightly basis you serve this menu?
Well, we've a wee niche here that we do private parties. We only take the one party per night, and we have a regular menu for that. It's a seasonal menu. But the demand for the Titanic menu when we launched it there, because it was Titanic Week in Belfast for the 98th anniversary last week, has been phenomenal. So we're going to open up a few nights a month for 2s and 4s, etc. So I suppose the best way for people to find that information, that will be posted on our website at rayannehouse.com.
Fantastic. Conor, thank you very much for joining us.
Absolute pleasure. Listen, thanks a million.
And,
Great to chat to you.
Heston is a spoofer. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Conor. I'm wondering, though, is there a restaurant in Cove that does it as well? Because anywhere that's got a connection with the Titanic must try and cash in on it. There's a
That's
restaurant.
a great idea, though.
Restaurant in New York.
Imagine having 13 courses.
If there's anybody listening in Cove, does your restaurant serve something that was served in the Titanic? And
You just want somewhere nearer to you.
Yeah, no, I don't want somebody texting and going, well, we serve ice cubes in the drinks. No, that doesn't count. Thanks for that.
Guy Conor was lovely, wasn't he, from Rayanne House?
He's a great talker, wasn't he?
I could have chatted to him for ages.
If we ever need kind of a chefy, kind of a foodie fellow, he's the man
He's
to
our
ring.
man.
He's a great talker, I have to say. He really sells his place well, I have to say.